Welcome to the deep dive. Okay, let's forget the usual focus on just skills and experience for a moment.
Right.
We're diving into why character often quietly dictates who truly succeeds, in the long run at work.
Yeah, it's a fascinating area.
We've got a range of insights here,
Yeah.
looking at how our personal qualities shape not just our own careers, but the entire organizations we're a part of.
Exactly. We've been looking at, well, everything from how businesses function day to day to the core principles of effective leadership,
Hmm.
and even the subtle but really powerful ways individual traits impact the health of a company.
And the goal isn't just to talk about being nice, right?
No, not at all. Our goal isn't just about being a good person. It's to understand the real nuts and bolts, the fundamentals of what makes an organization not just survive, but actually flourish over time.
Okay, so let's kick things off. Let's look at something our sources call the trap of talent.
Ah, yes, the talent trap.
It's so easy, isn't it? Like to be blown away by someone's obvious abilities, their immediate wins,
Mm-hmm.
that impressive list of accomplishments.
Yeah.
But what happens when we fixate only on that shiny surface?
Well, what's fascinating and kind of dangerous is how this laser focus on visible talent can actually blind us.
Blind as how?
Blind us to the less obvious but ultimately critical aspects of someone's character and their fundamental values. It's sort of like being mesmerized by a car's horsepower while completely ignoring whether it has, reliable brakes.
Right. That's a great analogy. Think about the absolute star performer, the one who delivers amazing results,
We all know one.
but leaves a trail of chaos and resentment among their colleagues. They might be hitting all the targets, sure, but what's the hidden cost?
Exactly. What's the cost to team spirit, to people actually wanting to collaborate? Our sources suggest that kind of behavior, even from top talent, can really drag down overall productivity in the end.
Which raises a really important question then, doesn't it? How do we even measure success?
Well, yeah. The research points out that we often get fixated on the easily countable stuff, the metrics.
Sales figures, project deadlines met.
Yeah, those things. But what gets overlooked are those crucial soft skills, things like being able to lead effectively, showing empathy, building strong working relationships.
And it's those seemingly soft skills that our sources argue are absolutely vital for keeping a team cohesive. Especially now, right? In today's diverse workplaces.
Absolutely vital. A super talented but completely self-absorbed person can create real divisions and, frankly, mistrust among people from different backgrounds.
It's like having a top chef who's so arrogant no one wants to work in their kitchen.
Perfect example. And if we connect this to the bigger picture, the research highlights how this overemphasis on immediate talent often goes hand in hand with a drive for short-term gains.
Ah, the quarterly targets.
Precisely. Think about those quarterly earnings reports that drive so much decision-making. This focus can inadvertently push aside the slower but ultimately more vital work of developing talent for the long haul and nurturing a positive workplace culture.
So it sounds like we need to redefine what we even mean by talent, doesn't it? It's not just about individual brilliance.
I think we do. True talent, according to our sources, really needs to include those positive personal qualities, the things that make someone a valuable team member, someone who actively contributes to a healthy environment.
Okay, so moving on from the trap, what does matter more than just raw performance?
Exactly. The sources make a strong case that interpersonal relationships, the underlying culture of the workplace, and the individual personalities that shape it. These are the fundamental building blocks.
The visible elements.
Yeah, the invisible elements, that's a good way to put it. They underpin long-term organizational well-being. These are the often unseen things that truly hold everything together.
And one crucial unseen element seems to be trust. Our sources really underscore how a culture built on trust and mutual respect is absolutely essential. So what happens when that trust starts to break down?
Oh, it's bad. When trust erodes, the research indicates a domino effect of negative consequences. People become less willing to cooperate.
Hold back information.
They hesitate to share important information, exactly. And the kind of open communication that sparks innovation simply, well, it disappears. It's like the foundation of a building starting to crumble.
Leadership, communication, empathy. These keep coming up in our sources as absolutely pivotal in fostering that collaboration and trust.
They are. It's not just about giving directives, is it? It's about genuinely connecting with people on your team.
So that brings us to psychological safety.
Indeed. The concept of psychological safety emerges here as particularly important. And look, this isn't just about being nice. It taps into fundamental human psychology.
Oh, so,
When people fear judgment or humiliation, their brains prioritize safety over creativity and risk-taking.
which are crucial for innovation.
Absolutely. So psychological safety is basically an environment where individuals feel comfortable taking risks and voicing ideas without fear of being punished or, shamed for mistakes.
Our sources also draw a pretty stark contrast, don't they, between organizations fixated on short-term profits and those that really invest in developing their people and fostering strong teams for the long haul.
Yes, a very stark contrast. And which approach tends to win out in the end? Well, the research strongly suggests that while a purely profit-driven focus might show some initial spikes,
Quick wins?
quick wins, exactly, it's the organizations that prioritize the growth and well-being of their people, nurturing that collaborative environment, that are ultimately linked to more sustainable and robust growth long-term.
So we're seeing that character isn't just some abstract ideal. It has a very real impact on the day-to-day functioning of a business. How exactly does character ripple through the workplace?
Well, the sources explain how character acts like an invisible current, you see. It influences everything from individual decisions and actions to the broader organizational culture, how people feel about their work morale, and those critical interpersonal relationships.
And the character of leaders and supervisors must be huge here.
Oh, absolutely pivotal. Their character in particular really sets the overall tone for the entire organizational climate.
We've all seen examples, haven't we? The sources mention how seemingly small character-related issues like poor communication or maybe a leader's inflated ego
Yeah.
can actually
Yeah.
escalate into major problems within a team or even across departments.
Exactly. And as we discussed earlier, when leaders foster understanding and respect, it creates that crucial psychological safety we talked about.
People feel valued.
They feel valued, and they're more likely to bring their best selves to work. Conversely, leaders with character flaws, as the sources point out, can cultivate truly toxic cultures.
Right, where dissenting opinions are shut down.
And talented people just decide to leave. They vote with their feet.
Self-awareness seems like a real cornerstone here, especially for those in leadership positions.
Oh, definitely. If you don't have a good understanding of how your actions are perceived by others, how can you possibly build trust?
You can't.
That's a critical insight. The sources emphasize that leaders who are self-aware, who are attuned to their impact on their teams, they're much more likely to build strong lines of communication and cultivate genuine trust.
And ultimately, as our sources make clear, character isn't just a personal trait. It's absolutely vital for, well, everything.
Pretty much. How well a team works together, the level of cooperation across the company, the overall corporate culture, and even a company's ability to attract and keep talented employees. It's a fundamental building block for organizational growth and, crucially, long-term stability.
Okay, this naturally leads us to a question you might be thinking about.
Mm-hmm.
Can competence and character actually coexist in the workplace? Because sometimes it feels like we have to pick one over the other, doesn't it?
It really does feel like that sometimes. That tension definitely exists, especially when our performance evaluations are so focused on those easily measured results.
Right, the numbers.
The sources point out how a results-first mentality can easily lead us to ignore character issues
Until it's too late.
until the long-term damage is already done. Exactly.
But the research here is encouraging, isn't it?
It is, actually. It argues that when you combine genuine good character things like empathy, a collaborative spirit, consideration for others with strong competence, that's where you see truly significant success.
For individuals and teams.
Both. Significant success for both individuals and for their teams.
And it sounds like the role of leaders in nurturing those positive relationships and really supporting their teams is crucial in making that happen.
Absolutely. The sources highlight that effective leaders aren't just focused on their own achievements. They are skilled at developing the talent and fostering positive dynamics within their teams. They uplift the whole group.
But finding those individuals who excel in both competence and character, that can be a real challenge, right? Especially in highly competitive environments.
It is a challenge. The pressure to deliver immediate results can sometimes overshadow everything else.
So what's the solution?
That's where the research emphasizes a need for a fundamental shift. A shift in how companies approach both hiring new people and evaluating the performance of existing employees.
How so?
Character traits need to be assessed with the same seriousness, the same rigor as skills and experience.
And it all comes back to creating an organizational culture that truly values cooperation and trust. not just individual accomplishment.
Precisely.
Hmm.
And the sources also touch on the importance of personal development and actively seeking feedback. Finding that balance between competence and character isn't a fixed state.
It's ongoing.
It requires ongoing effort and a willingness to learn and adapt. Self-growth is key.
So if we shift our focus away from just those quick wins, what are the real foundations, the things we need to build an organization that can thrive and endure over the long haul?
The sources paint a pretty clear picture here. Long-term success rests on a combination of key elements,
Okay, like what?
starting with a strong and healthy corporate culture, a shared set of values, a clear unifying vision that's foundational.
Makes sense.
Eh,
What else?
Then there's talent development, actively providing the training, mentorship, and leadership development opportunities that allow people to grow and reach their full potential.
Not just hiring stars, but growing them.
Exactly. Leadership quality obviously plays a massive role, and our sources specifically highlight the power of what's called servant leadership.
Where the leader focuses on the team's needs first.
Yes, where the leader's primary focus is on supporting and empowering their team rather than just dictating from the top. It builds motivation differently.
And trust must underpin all of this.
Absolutely. Underpinning all of this is the crucial act of building trust through transparency and mutual respect. Coupled with that is the absolute need for flexibility and adaptability in a constantly evolving business environment.
Which is always.
Always. And of course, a culture that actively encourages innovation and a willingness to take calculated risks.
It sounds like all of these elements are deeply interconnected, like a cycle.
They really are. A strong culture fosters a sense of shared responsibility, developing talent naturally nurtures future leaders, and trust creates the open communication that fuels innovation. It's a positive cycle that builds on itself.
So the conclusion is,
Precisely. The research concludes that it's this harmonious interplay of all these elements, not just those easily tracked short-term metrics, that ultimately determines an organization's long-term viability and its ability to truly succeed.
now, our sources also delve into some of the dangers. The darker side, maybe? Leadership styles that might produce quick results, but at a significant cost to the people involved.
Yes. The balancing act.
Let's talk about that balancing act between short-term gains and the long-term impact on character and culture.
What's really insightful here is the critique of leadership that prioritizes immediate results through methods like, well, creating a culture of fear, and even resorting to public shaming. The sources argue that while these tactics might lead to a temporary boost in performance,
And sometimes do, right?
they sometimes do, yes, but they fundamentally damage morale, motivation, creativity, and the variability of a team to work effectively together over time. The long-term cost is immense.
And it's a pattern we've probably all witnessed at some point. A leader comes in, cracks the whip, the numbers go up, and they're hailed as a success.
Exactly. They look good on paper.
Even if the team is experiencing burnout and resentment behind the scenes.
The research highlights the real danger of this kind of reward system. Short-term achievements, even when gained through negative means, are often very visible and celebrated,
Easy to point to.
while the damage inflicted on the team is less immediately obvious but far more corrosive in the long run. Fear-based management, the studies suggest, actively stifles innovation and discourages people from taking necessary risks.
It's a stark contrast to the kind of leadership we were just discussing, isn't it?
Complete opposite. Leaders with strong character, our sources remind us, prioritize the long-term well-being and success of their teams over those fleeting short-term wins that come at a human cost.
So fear-based leadership is really about power.
Exactly. The research points out it's often an exercise in power, a way for leaders to maintain control. This is fundamentally different from the trust and empathy that are the cornerstones of truly effective and sustainable leadership.
And the impact on mental health.
Cannot be ignored. The negative impact on the mental health and overall well-being of team members simply cannot be ignored. It's a huge factor.
Ultimately, our sources argue that those sustainable results we're all aiming for come from creating a safe and encouraging environment
Right.
where people feel empowered to express their ideas and actively contribute, not from a place of anxiety and fear.
And the research makes a crucial distinction here. Providing clear and firm guidance to achieve results is fundamentally different from leading through intimidation.
You can be demanding without being demeaning.
Precisely. Character-driven leadership can still be demanding and focused on outcomes, but it achieves those outcomes through trust, support, and a genuine commitment to the growth of each individual on the team.
Now, as our workplaces become increasingly diverse, our sources also address some of the unique challenges
Right?
that cultural and value differences can bring to the forefront. This adds another layer of complexity.
It really does. This is a critical point. The research highlights how power dynamics within an organization can often overshadow the valid perspectives of those in more junior positions.
Yeah.
And this is further complicated when cultural and value differences are in play. The damaging employees as costs mentality is also discussed.
Treating people like resources, not humans.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And how it can prevent leaders from treating individuals with the respect they deserve and fostering that crucial intrinsic motivation.
It's interesting how the sources note that a leader who does genuinely value their employees, who tries to foster that internal drive, they can sometimes be seen as soft. Right.
Yes. Especially in a highly performance-driven environment, that perception really underscores the tension we've been discussing.
And the research uses public shaming again as an example.
It does, to illustrate how some leaders try to force changes in behavior. But as the findings indicate, while this might lead to temporary compliance,
People fall in line out of fear.
right, but it doesn't cultivate that deep-seated intrinsic motivation that stems from an individual's core values. That's missing.
And when you have a workforce that represents a wide spectrum of values and cultural backgrounds, a one-size-fits-all, fear-based approach seems particularly ineffective.
If not actively damaging, absolutely. The sources stress the need for leadership to not only understand but actively respect diverse values, leveraging cultural diversity as a real strength,
Not a problem to be managed.
rather than viewing it as a potential source of conflict. They also point out the dangerous cycle where leaders who achieve short-term gains using arrogant, fear-based tactics are likely to repeat those methods.
Because it worked before.
Right, even though they undermine the long-term health of the organization.
And the standard hiring process doesn't always catch these types of leaders, does it?
Often doesn't, because the focus is often so heavily weighted on those past financial results they've delivered. It's a significant flaw highlighted by the research.
So what's the alternative?
To address this, they advocate for leadership that actively embraces cultural and value differences, builds trust, and manages through that intrinsic motivation we talked about. These are essential ingredients for sustainable growth.
And it means rethinking performance reviews.
Yes. They suggest a real reevaluation of our performance review systems to give more weight to leadership quality and trust building alongside those short-term metrics.
This all brings us back to the potential dangers of what our sources call talent worship. It sounds like we need to be really careful about putting individual talent on a pedestal.
Extremely careful, without considering the broader impact on the team and the organization.
Why is it so risky?
Precisely. The sources warn against the significant risk of prioritizing talent without also considering character and leadership qualities, especially when making important personnel decisions. Raw talent alone, they argue, just doesn't guarantee a healthy organizational trajectory.
It can even cause disruption.
It can even be a source of significant disruption and instability.
The image the sources paint of highly skilled individuals leaving chaos in their wake is quite powerful.
It is, isn't it? It really speaks to that idea of someone achieving impressive results while simultaneously damaging the team and the overall culture, manipulating others, using fear.
Yeah.
And the long-term consequences of this talent obsession can be severe. The research describes worn-out teams and fractured organizations as the negative legacy.
So the results are all that matter. Mindset is flawed.
Deeply flawed. They critique that mindset, emphasizing that true long-term growth must include the development and well-being of employees and a healthy, supportive culture.
It seems that overvaluing individual talent can inadvertently sideline other capable team members too.
It absolutely can, leading to decreased motivation and even talent attrition as people feel their contributions aren't being recognized or valued.
And that feeling of unfairness.
That feeling of unfairness created by preferential treatment based solely on talent can indeed erode trust and undermine team unity, as the sources point out.
Does it have wider effects?
It can. They even touch on the broader societal implications of talent worship, where exploitative leadership models can unfortunately gain traction and spread.
So the recommended approach, according to our sources, is
To really re-examine those leadership evaluation criteria, shifting the focus towards long-term talent development and the cultivation of a positive organizational culture.
emphasizing balance.
Yes, emphasizing a balanced leadership style that supports both individual growth and collective well-being.
Okay, this brings us to a really practical challenge. The hiring dilemma.
Ah, yes, the big one.
How do you effectively balance the need for high-level skills with the absolute necessity of strong character in potential employees?
It's a constant tightrope walk, isn't it? The sources acknowledge that neglecting character in the hiring process, even when the immediate skills on offer seem incredibly valuable, well, it can lead to significant and long-lasting headaches down the line.
And the research raises a really interesting point about power dynamics in hiring.
Yes, they suggest that supervisors who are primarily driven by a need to maintain their own authority might actually avoid hiring highly capable individuals who could potentially outshine them.
Threaten their position.
Right, leading them to select candidates who are skilled but might also be more likely to cause problems in the long run, maybe easier to manage, they think.
And then there's the always present issue of compensation.
Always.
Yeah.
Even if you manage to find someone with the ideal combination of skills and character, if you're not able to offer a competitive salary and benefits package, you run the risk of losing them.
Which undermines stability.
Undermines that long-term stability we've been talking about.
The sources also highlight the challenge of self-promotion, right?
Yes. Candidates with genuinely strong character might tend to understate their own achievements, be more humble,
Well, arrogant ones.
while more arrogant candidates might overstate their accomplishments, making it difficult for hiring managers to get an accurate picture during the interview process. It muddies the waters.
And even if a new hire's skills meet or even exceed expectations, those underlying character issues can very quickly sabotage team morale and the fundamental ability of the team to collaborate effectively on projects.
Absolutely. This is why the sources strongly advocate for prioritizing character for the long-term health of the organization.
Because skills can be taught.
Skills can often be taught and developed through training and experience, but core character traits are generally much more deeply ingrained and, frankly, resistant to significant change.
So how do you assess character in hiring?
They suggest incorporating behavioral observation, maybe even trial tasks, into the hiring process to get a more accurate sense of a candidate's collaborative style and their approach to problem solving within a team setting. See them in action.
It sounds like it requires a real shift in mindset during the hiring process, moving beyond just ticking off a list of required skills.
Yes, and really focusing on the long-term cultural fit and the future potential of the individual within the existing organizational culture.
So it's about a long-term strategy.
Absolutely. A truly effective long-term hiring strategy, as the research emphasizes, must take into account not only an individual's immediate contributions, but also their potential for future leadership roles within the company and, crucially, how well their values align with the fundamental values of the organization as a whole.
So if we choose to ignore character when making hiring decisions, what's the real extent of the damage? How bad can it get?
The sources are quite clear on this point. They assert that the negative impact of individuals who lack strong character often far outweighs whatever skills they might bring to the table,
Especially in disrupting trust.
particularly in their capacity to erode trust and hinder effective cooperation among team members. This lack of character, especially in leadership positions, the research shows, actively stifles open communication.
Chokes off innovation.
Chokes off innovation, exactly, and significantly reduces the overall flexibility of the organization to adapt to new challenges.
It sounds like a slow but relentless corrosive force.
That's a good way to put it. It gradually eats away at the very foundations of a healthy and productive workplace.
What else does it lead to?
Precisely. The sources detail how it directly leads to a decline in trust, diminishes the willingness to cooperate, and can ultimately result in the complete breakdown of effective teamwork.
And more tangible problems.
Yes. They also connect a lack of character to more tangible problems, such as an increase in incidents of harassment and bullying, as well as a significant drop in overall employee motivation and retention rates. People just leave.
And it's not just about those overtly negative behaviors, is it?
No. The research also points out how leaders who lack strong character, who are primarily self-centered, may fail to properly assess and provide adequate support for the professional growth and development of their own team members.
Hindering overall progress.
Right, hindering the overall progress of the organization.
And the damage extends beyond the internal workings of the company.
It does. The sources also highlight the negative impact that a reputation for poor leadership or a toxic work environment can have on the organization's external image.
Makes it hard to hire good people.
Exactly. And its ability to attract top talent in the future. Perhaps most concerning for long-term sustainability, leaders with character issues can actively hinder effective leadership succession planning and the development of a clear, unifying long-term organizational vision.
So conclusion is clear.
Very clear. Consistently ignoring character in hiring comes with severe and long-lasting negative consequences. It's just not worth the risk.
So if the absence of character can be so damaging, it logically follows that the presence of strong character in leadership must be incredibly important.
Absolutely crucial. The sources reiterate that character is vital for the overall health and success of any organization, and yet it's often overlooked.
In the rush to celebrate achievements.
Yes, in the rush to celebrate individual achievements and technical skills, a lack of character at the leadership level, the research clearly shows, actively destroys the possibility of genuine collaboration
And communication suffers.
and significantly lowers the quality of communication within teams by creating an underlying atmosphere of fear and intimidation. You can't speak freely.
And that foundational role that trust plays between a leader and their team.
Simply cannot be overstated. A leader who is consistently perceived as trustworthy, our sources highlight, provides a massive boost to overall team morale and a sense of security. People feel safe.
Conversely,
Conversely, a lack of character in leadership can very easily lead to the abuse of power and the active suppression of valuable opinions and insights from team members, shutting people down.
but leaders with strong character take a different approach.
Fundamentally different. The research emphasizes that leaders who possess strong character prioritize the professional growth and development of their people, consistently act in the best long-term interests of the organization as a whole,
And inspire people differently.
and inspire that all-important intrinsic motivation within their teams. People want to contribute.
And the impact of a leader's character on the overall organizational culture is truly profound, isn't it?
Oh, it's huge. They essentially set the behavioral norms that everyone else within the company tends to follow, consciously or not.
Like ripples in a pond.
Exactly. And the sources point out that a leader's true character is often most clearly revealed during difficult and challenging situations.
How so?
Do they prioritize their own self-interest, maybe cover their own backs, or do they consistently act in a way that prioritizes the well-being and long-term success of the organization as a whole? That's the test.
So leaders set the example.
Ultimately, as the research underscores, leaders inherently set the example, making their own character absolutely central to their overall influence and effectiveness. It all flows from them.
Now, as our workplaces become more and more diverse, how do we navigate the complexities of harmonizing that increasing diversity with the fundamental need for strong character?
This is a really nuanced challenge, a tricky intersection. The sources specifically critique the use of public shaming by some supervisors.
We keep coming back to that.
Yes, as a significant barrier to both fostering genuine diversity and achieving meaningful team growth. This type of fear-based management style, the research indicates, effectively strips employees of their sense of autonomy
And stifles thinking.
and stifles the kind of independent and creative thinking that is so crucial for long-term professional development and organizational innovation.
And it's often justified within those high-pressure, results-driven environments we've discussed earlier.
Right, where concerns about empathy and individual professional development can sometimes be dismissed as secondary or, less important than hitting the numbers.
But that justification is short-sighted.
Ultimately short-sighted, the sources argue. Respecting the diverse range of values and perspectives that individuals from different backgrounds bring to the workplace is what truly strengthens organizations.
Whereas authoritarian approaches undermine it.
Exactly. Authoritarian management approaches that rely on instilling fear actively undermine that potential. Leadership that genuinely supports independent thinking and encourages learning from mistakes is absolutely essential.
And it stands in stark contrast to forced compliance.
Yes, it stands in stark contrast to a management style that relies on forced compliance and the suppression of differing viewpoints.
And even if public shaming or similar tactics yield some short-term results, they don't cultivate that genuine intrinsic motivation and personal growth that are the foundations for long-term talent development.
No, they don't. It's superficial change. It sounds like leaders who resort to those kinds of tactics are often more concerned with maintaining their own authority and control than with the actual development and empowerment of their team members.
That's a key insight from the research.
It is. The sources conclude that truly harmonizing diversity and character within an organization fundamentally depends on a leadership approach that is built on trust and empathy.
Leadership that supports growth.
Leadership that actively supports independent professional growth and fully understands and leverages the powerful positive impact that a diverse range of values can bring to the organization. It's about inclusion, not control.
One of the more memorable analogies in our sources is the idea of a team collapsing due to an overemphasis on talent obsession. Using the example of a superstar athlete like Messi.
Ah, the messy analogy.
Yes. How does that kind of dynamic translate to the context of a business or organization?
The analogy is quite powerful, I think. Just as an excessive reliance on one exceptionally talented player can disrupt the overall balance and cohesion of a sports team.
Right.
In a business setting, an overfixation on individual talent can lead other team members to feel overlooked, ultimately diminishing their confidence and their sense of purpose within the organization.
They feel less significant.
They might start to feel like their own contributions are less significant or don't really matter in the grand scheme of things. Why bother?
And it can also undermine the organization's overall flexibility and adaptability.
It can. As other team members become less proactive, perhaps less willing to step up, and potentially miss out on valuable opportunities for professional growth because the superstar is always taking the lead or being given preferential treatment.
And there are often significant financial costs involved as well.
Yes, attracting and retaining top-tier talent frequently comes with a hefty price tag, which can potentially strain resources in other crucial areas of the organization.
And that feeling of helplessness, among others.
That resulting feeling of helplessness and a sense of limited contribution among other team members can really erode overall team unity and collaboration over time. It breeds resentment.
And when those highly talented individuals consistently receive special treatment or are held to different standards?
It just screams unfairness. It can breed resentment and a strong sense of unfairness among the rest of the team, seriously damaging that foundation of trust we've discussed so much.
The sources also point out that a constant external focus on acquiring new talent can often lead to neglect.
Neglect of developing the existing skilled and potential of current team members? Yes. Ultimately leading to increased dissatisfaction and higher rates of employee turnover, people feel undervalued.
So the key takeaway here is balance.
Balance. The critical need for balance, focusing on collaboration, and ensuring that even the most exceptionally talented individuals function as fully integrated and collaborative members of the broader team.
And maximizing everyone's potential.
Maximizing the potential of all team members, especially in organizations that might not have the financial resources to constantly recruit top-tier superstars, is absolutely crucial for long-term success. Build the team you have.
Now, what about those specific and often challenging situations where you have an individual who is clearly highly competent, delivers impressive results, but who is also a significant disruptive force within the team? Someone our sources might refer to as a competent troublemaker.
Ah, the brilliant jerk. Yes.
How do you effectively manage that kind of dynamic?
It's tough. It is indeed a tricky but incredibly important area for leaders to navigate. The sources acknowledge that performance-driven evaluation systems can sometimes unintentionally lead to the promotion of these individuals,
Even if they lack leadership qualities.
even if they demonstrably lack crucial leadership qualities, such as the ability to positively influence others and strong ethical character. The potential damage they can inflict on overall team collaboration and general motivation, it can be really substantial.
Especially if they act unilaterally.
Especially if they tend to act unilaterally and display a lack of respect for their colleagues. That's very damaging.
So it sounds like simply promoting them into traditional leadership roles is probably not the best idea.
Generally not the most effective or beneficial approach in the long run.
What alternative strategies do our sources suggest for dealing with this kind of individual?
Well, they suggest clearly defining and perhaps even narrowing their roles. Allow them to leverage their specific skills and expertise in positions that don't require them to lead or directly manage others.
Like a project lead or an advisor.
Exactly. Roles like leading specific projects or acting as a specialist advisor on particular initiatives. This allows the organization to continue to benefit from their technical competence without them negatively impacting broader team dynamics.
And feedback is important.
Crucial. Providing very targeted and specific feedback, focusing on concrete examples of their behavior and how it impacts their colleagues, is also crucial. Even if they have a tendency towards high self-esteem or, defensiveness, stick to the facts.
It sounds like it's about carefully assessing a wider range of leadership qualities, things like empathy, trustworthiness.
Right. The ability to inspire and motivate others alongside purely quantitative performance metrics when making any kind of promotion decisions.
And having clear, objective criteria helps.
Absolutely key. Having clear, objective criteria and evaluation processes in place is absolutely key to minimizing potential bias. Takes the personality out of it somewhat.
Any other strategies?
Building complementary teams around these individuals. where other team members with strong interpersonal and collaborative skills can help to balance out their potential weaknesses. That's another effective strategy highlighted in the research.
And looking towards the future, AI might play a role.
Potentially. The sources even touch on the potential role that artificial intelligence could play in analyzing leadership qualities and behavioral patterns to provide more objective feedback and help inform promotion decisions. Still needs human oversight, though.
So the overall message is flexibility.
Yes. A flexible and thoughtful approach, carefully considered role assignments, constructive and specific feedback, and a thorough evaluation of leadership potential beyond just individual performance are all essential for effectively managing competent troublemakers.
Our sources also delve into the common personality traits that we often observe in individuals who achieve significant success. Is there a particular dominant character profile?
Well, the sources acknowledge that significant success can be achieved by individuals exhibiting a really diverse range of character traits.
Like Steve Jobs or Michael Jordan?
Exactly. Citing well-known figures like Steve Jobs and Michael Jordan, who were undeniably successful in their respective fields, but were also known for having quite challenging interpersonal styles, to put it mildly.
Perception can overshadow reality.
Yes. The perception of success, the research suggests, can often overshadow the personal hardships and even problematic behaviors that might have been involved in achieving it. We often romanticize it.
We tend to see the final result, the summit reached, and not always the difficult climb.
Precisely. And sometimes that climb wasn't exactly ethical. However, the sources do highlight some common threads among successful people.
Such as?
Unwavering self-belief, an incredibly intense focus and perseverance in the face of obstacles, and a significant willingness to take risks.
But these traits don't automatically equal good character.
No, and that's the critical distinction they make. These particular traits don't automatically equate to admirable character in a broader sense, and can sometimes even involve a degree of ruthlessness or a disregard for the impact on others.
And the sources touch on how, historically, there's been this somewhat accepted association of ruthlessness with success.
Yes, particularly within very performance-driven and highly competitive organizational cultures. Almost like it was expected.
But that might be changing.
That's right. The research also notes an interesting and perhaps encouraging shift in this perception. The newer generation of individuals who are achieving significant success seems to be placing a greater emphasis on collaboration, building strong relationships,
And positive impact.
and having a positive impact on their teams and the wider world. This suggests that qualities like empathy and a strong cooperative spirit may become increasingly essential for future leaders.
So older, more cutthroat models might be evolving.
They might be gradually evolving, yes.
Yeah.
It sounds like the very definition of success itself and the character traits that we commonly associate with it might be in a state of ongoing change and reevaluation.
Which is hopeful.
It is. The qualities and behaviors that define success are likely to continue to adapt and evolve as workplace values and broader societal expectations continue to shift over time.
This all naturally leads us to the crucial question of how we actually go about evaluating character in a practical business setting. It's not easy.
No, definitely not as straightforward as measuring sales figures or project completion rates.
So how do we do it?
That's a critical point. The sources highlight the increasing recognition of the need to formally assess character alongside traditional metrics like performance and technical skills,
Especially for leadership roles.
especially when considering candidates for management and leadership roles. But they also readily acknowledge the inherent difficulty in objectively evaluating those often abstract qualities through short-term observations or standard interview processes.
So what's the recommendation?
Their recommendation is to focus on the long-term tracking of an individual's actions and their verbal communication over time. Use regular team meetings, daily workplace interactions
As data points.
as valuable opportunities to observe their underlying values in action and their overall influence on those around them. See the patterns.
And the sources even bring up the potential role that AI could play.
Yes, as a supportive tool in analyzing this kind of data more objectively, while still wisely emphasizing that the final, crucial decisions should always rest with informed human judgment.
Context matters.
Taking the full context of the situation into careful consideration, that thoughtful blend of data-driven insights and nuanced human evaluation is absolutely key.
And we need to look beyond just the actions.
Yes. The sources stress the importance of striving to understand the underlying intentions and core values that drive an individual's actions, not just focusing solely on the actions themselves. Why did they do it?
What are the core elements to look for?
And they identify several core elements that should be central to any character evaluation process, such as demonstrable ethics, empathy towards colleagues, and unwavering integrity in their professional dealings. Honesty, reliability.
They also offer an important caution against relying too heavily on specific cultural norms. Right.
Yes, that might inadvertently bias character evaluations against individuals from more diverse backgrounds or those with different communication styles. Need to be aware of that bias.
And consistency is key.
And they emphasize the need for consistent character evaluation criteria to be applied across different departments and teams within an organization to ensure fairness and equity in promotions and professional development opportunities.
So it's a long game.
It really sounds like effective character assessment is a long-term process, requiring ongoing observation, a genuine effort to understand underlying motivations, a smart use of data combined with human insight, and a flexible yet consistently applied evaluation framework.
This naturally brings up the fundamental question. Can character actually be developed, nurtured over time?
Or are we essentially stuck with the core personality traits we're born with?
It's a really hopeful question, isn't it? Can people change?
It is. The sources suggest that while some of the more core aspects of an individual's character might be fairly ingrained, their behaviors, attitudes, and overall professional approach can indeed evolve and mature over time.
How did that happen? Feedback.
Feedback and the development of self-awareness play a critical role in that evolution. When individuals receive honest and constructive feedback on their behaviors and their impact on others, it can often prompt them to recognize and actively work to modify negative patterns.
And mentorship helps.
Mentorship and professional coaching can also provide valuable guidance and ongoing support for character growth, particularly in developing those essential interpersonal skills like empathy and effective communication, someone to guide them.
And it sounds like the broader organizational culture itself exerts a really powerful influence.
Huge influence, shaping employee behavior and professional norms over an extended period through its stated values and, crucially, the consistent actions of its leadership. What gets rewarded, what gets punished.
So it's not necessarily about a complete personality overhaul?
No, exactly. While complete and radical overhaul of someone's deeply ingrained core character might be unrealistic in most cases, the sources emphasize that individuals can definitely learn to adopt more constructive, collaborative, and ethical ways of working.
But they have to want it.
Within a supportive and well-defined professional environment, yes. Ultimately, a genuine desire for personal growth and a real willingness to learn from past mistakes and actively seek out opportunities for improvement are crucial internal drivers of meaningful character development.
So it's less about expecting a sudden, dramatic transformation,
Right.
and more about fostering a gradual process of learning, adapting, and growing within a work environment that actively encourages and supports those positive changes.
Exactly. And the overall organizational culture plays a vital role in creating and sustaining that kind of supportive environment.
So how do the daily routines, the explicitly stated values, and the prevalent leadership styles within a company actually shape the character of the individuals who work there?
Our sources emphasize that this influence is truly profound and often underestimated. Organizations aren't just physical or virtual spaces where work gets done.
They're more than that.
They also function as significant environments for ongoing personal growth and the development of character traits. You spend so much time there.
And leadership sets the tone.
The everyday behavioral norms that are consistently modeled by an organization's leadership, both in their actions and their communications, are often subconsciously emulated by employees at all levels.
Which impacts trust.
And this directly impacts the overall level of trust and psychological safety within the workplace. Feedback systems also matter.
How so?
Clearly defined feedback and performance evaluation systems that address not only task-related performance, but also interpersonal behavior and ethical conduct play a crucial role in guiding positive character growth within the organization. What gets measured gets managed.
And the sources highlight how organizations actively instill a sense of responsibility and ethics.
Yes, through their established culture and their consistent level of tolerance or complete lack thereof for any kind of professional misconduct or unethical behavior. What are the real consequences?
And teamwork helps develop character.
Opportunities for building strong support networks among colleagues and engaging in collaborative teamwork also contribute significantly, fostering the development of empathy and strengthening essential communication skills. You learn from others.
And career development programs.
And thoughtfully designed career development programs can broaden employees' perspectives and foster the kind of mindset and attitudinal growth that leads to more mature and well-rounded leadership over time. Seeing the bigger picture.
So it's a truly reciprocal relationship, isn't it? Culture shapes character, character shapes culture.
It really is. The prevailing organizational culture actively shapes the individual character traits of its employees, and the collective character of the individuals within the organization, in turn, continually reinforces and evolves its culture.
So a healthy environment supports positive character.
Precisely. A healthy and ethically grounded organizational environment, one that genuinely values sustainable growth and a strong sense of social responsibility, actively supports and encourages the development of positive character traits in its employees at all levels.
This brings us back to the critical question of how we approach evaluating talent within our organizations. If we're truly committed to building for the long term, how should our perspective on talent evaluation fundamentally shift?
The sources argue strongly for a fundamental shift away from solely focusing on easily quantifiable short-term achievements
The quick wins again?
and towards adopting a truly long-term perspective when evaluating talent. This means placing equal emphasis on assessing not just the ultimate outcomes, but also the processes and approaches they utilize to get there.
Rewarding effort, learning from failure.
Actively rewarding genuine effort and the ability to learn constructively from inevitable setbacks and failures. That's key.
And when we're thinking about the long-term potential of our employees,
Character and core values become even more significant than those immediate short-term wins.
All right.
Absolutely.
how do we evaluate that potential?
Effective long-term talent evaluation involves thoughtfully gauging an individual's inherent potential for growth into future roles and their overall capacity for continued development within the specific context of the organization.
Requires ongoing observation.
This requires consistent and ongoing observation of their behavior and providing regular, constructive feedback that actively guides their professional development and encourages a mindset of continuous learning and improvement.
And it sounds like organizations also need to proactively provide a diverse range of career development opportunities.
Yes, opportunities that truly allow individuals to unlock their full potential and broaden their professional perspectives, give them chances to grow.
And the broader organizational culture itself plays a vital role.
Vital and often underestimated role. Either actively supporting and encouraging long-term professional growth potential, or inadvertently hindering it through a lack of support for calculated risk-taking and a genuine commitment to continuous learning at all levels. Does the culture really support growth?
So the conclusion is a holistic view.
The ultimate conclusion is that a truly long-term perspective in talent evaluation, one that thoughtfully encompasses not only performance metrics, but also character, core values, and future potential within a supportive and growth-oriented organizational environment, is absolutely key to achieving sustainable and meaningful long-term success.
We've spent a good amount of time discussing the many benefits of prioritizing character, but let's circle back one more time to the other side of the coin.
The risks.
What are the real and often significant costs associated with choosing to ignore character when we're making critical hiring decisions?
The sources make it abundantly clear that the long-term costs of neglecting character in favor of solely focusing on skills can be truly significant, often far outweighing any perceived short-term advantages.
Leads to disruption.
Ignoring character in the hiring process can lead to widespread disruptions in organizational harmony, a noticeable decline in overall productivity, and a significant erosion of trust among team members. It's just damaging.
And while objectively measuring something as nuanced as character can certainly present challenges, the sources strongly caution that this inherent ambiguity should never be used as an excuse to simply ignore it altogether.
No, that's a cop-out. Exactly. The potential for organizational fragmentation and internal conflict is a major concern.
How so?
Conflicting core values and negative interpersonal behaviors, even when exhibited by highly skilled individuals, can significantly undermine teamwork, lower overall morale across the board, and create a generally toxic work environment.
And there's a risk of corruption.
The very serious risk of internal corruption and unethical practices spreading from individuals with problematic character traits is another significant and often underestimated cost. One bad apple.
And then there's the more immediately tangible impact on the bottom line.
Yes, such as experiencing higher rates of employee turnover and the considerable costs associated with constantly having to recruit, onboard, and train new employees to replace those who have left. It's expensive.
And perhaps one of the most insidious costs of all is the erosion of culture.
Yes, the gradual but steady erosion of the organization's unique culture, that often intangible set of shared values, norms, and beliefs that can actually be a powerful and sustainable source of long-term competitive advantage.
So when character misalignment disrupts culture,
When a misalignment of character among employees and leadership disrupts that carefully cultivated culture, it ultimately weakens the entire organization from within.
so the sources advocate strongly for emphasizing character evaluation in hiring.
Very strongly. Through the use of in-depth behavioral interview questions and various assessment tools that are specifically designed to evaluate a candidate's alignment with the organization's core cultural values and long-term strategic goals.
The fundamental point is careful selection.
The fundamental point is that carefully selecting candidates who not only possess the necessary skills, but also genuinely align with the organization's culture and its vision for long-term success beyond just their immediate abilities is absolutely essential for achieving sustainable growth and avoiding a multitude of significant and often hidden costs down the road.
So, as we bring this deep dive to a close, it seems our exploration has really illuminated a fundamental truth about the workplace. While raw talent and technical skills are undoubtedly important factors, it's a strong underlying foundation of character,
Mm-hmm.
deeply held ethical values, and their genuine alignment with the organization's core mission that are truly paramount.
Paramount for achieving sustained long-term success and for fostering a healthy and thriving environment for everyone involved. Absolutely.
It goes beyond the resume.
Far beyond. Developing a deeper understanding of these often overlooked dynamics provides each of us, and you listening, with a crucial shortcut to being truly well-informed about the real engines that drive organizational effectiveness and long-term viability.
Going beyond the surface metrics.
Far beyond just the easily measured surface-level metrics, understanding what really makes things tick.
And on that insightful note, here's a final thought for you to consider in your own professional life.
Okay?
Take a moment to think about the individuals in your immediate professional sphere, your colleagues, your boss, your team. How might a more nuanced understanding of their character, going beyond just their apparent competence, offer you new and valuable insights into the underlying dynamics of your team and their true long-term potential within the organization?
That's a great reflection point.
And perhaps even more importantly, what specific role might you proactively play in fostering a workplace culture that genuinely values and consistently cultivates both talent and strong character in equal measure?
What's your part in it?
Exactly. Something to think about. Thanks so much for joining us for this deep dive.